Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone. Welcome to another 10 p.m. with BK. But tonight I'm not alone. As you can see, I have my very first guest the other day, David, right at the bottom, David Heng, and also to my left, my right. Always cannot get it right, which is another one of my good friends and senior from school, Ramesh Musa.
Hey,
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 welcome everyone. So again, sorry guys, I just need to do this one quick thing because this is a routine. I need to do this. So this is day. So now I cannot. My hands cannot stretch all the way to. So Ramesh got to stretch for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
May
Day
20.
number 20 of a 100-day challenge. Day number 20. Thanks, Ramesh. The 100-day challenge. So this has been a very interesting experience for me. And of course, I'm truly, truly thankful for two of my friends to hop on today and be part of the guests for Sunday night. You know, we could be doing a lot of other things, but they decided to hop on and kind of let's have some nice conversation about a very interesting topic. So tonight we are actually going to talk about Gryphons venturing overseas, a conversation with overseas refugees. So all three of us are actually schoolmates. We come from a school in Singapore called Raffles Institution. So as you can see from my T-shirt, we are all from Raffles. And we happen to also be all living overseas or have lived overseas for some time. So we kind of thought that it might be something interesting. And the reason why we chose Gryphon venturing overseas is because of this. Sorry, David, I will put you back again very quickly. I know it's blocking your face. I'm so sorry about that.
no worries.
One of our school crest has this animal, which is a gryphon. It's a mix between two animals, right? Yeah. So we heard a little bit from David the other day already. Maybe let's hear from Ramesh. Ramesh, why were you happy to jump on this call with us today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sunday night, what else can I be doing, right? But obviously to make good use of my time, I thought, it'd be fun to join you guys on your talk show and be part of this journey, day 20. I'm amazed at how long you've sustained this.
I'm happy that we could do day number 20 because I was just telling the guys just now. Today has been, I actually had two other meetings before this, and the internet decided to conk out today, decided to call it quits today. So I'm thankful that came back online. I managed to salvage one of the meetings, and then of course I'm happy to be doing this. So just to let everybody know, in case it fails again, it's not that we want to kind of cut short, but we hope it stays on. Hopefully it stays on, right? So maybe give a bit of background because I think some of us heard about David. So Ramesh, like, where have you lived before? Where are you currently living, and how long have you been overseas actually?
Okay. So yeah, it's a bit ironical talking about venturing overseas with this lockdown right now, where we basically can't go anywhere. But yeah, I'm not in Singapore at the moment. I'm actually here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, with both of you. And my say is it's good to have fellow friends and refugees to catch up with while we are venturing overseas and sometimes away from family as well. Right, like right now, I'm actually away from family and hoping to get back to Singapore soon.
Yeah, I understand you're going to go back quite soon, so we will all miss
Yeah.
you. We miss having your company here. And David, yourself, how is Malaysia your first overseas country?
No, this is I left Singapore about 15 years ago to go to
Wow.
Switzerland. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years in Switzerland, and then went back to Singapore for a very short time as a sort of transit, and then was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, for the last 10 years.
Wow, that's a long. Why did you
Yeah.
decide to come to Malaysia then?
Well, it actually started when I went to Switzerland. I was there to start like a leadership academy with the World Economic Forum, and um, and then I saw what it was like living in the EU with all the opportunities, and I was hoping that I could do something back in my own homeland. So the opportunity came nearest to me, which is in Malaysia, and that's how I got to be here. I never actually imagined I'll be away for so long, but that's how life has taken me.
How about Ramesh, yourself? Have you
Yeah,
always
maybe.
been in Malaysia?
No, so I guess my journey overseas started in mid 2000. So in 2005 was my first adventure, and moved the family to San Francisco. And I was at that point in time with a very large professional services firm. And actually, it was always been my dream to move and work in the States and live and work in the States. And I've always wanted to be in the West Coast. And it was a dream come true going to San Francisco. And I spent 2 years there with my wife and my daughter, my eldest daughter. And while we're there, actually during the move itself, my wife was expecting our number two, and Amber was actually born in San Francisco, and actually has a U.S. passport because she was born there. Um, in 2007, came back to Singapore, um, remained in Singapore for another 2 years, and I made another move this time around to Hong Kong, China. So I spent 4 years in Hong Kong, up till 2009 till 2013. And then from 2013, I moved once again to Shanghai for another 7 years. So I've been in Shanghai until June of this year. And while I was in Hong Kong, my wife and I actually had our third daughter. So, we actually have three girls born in three different cities: Singapore, San Fran, and Hong Kong. And it's been a wonderful adventure. Would not hesitate to do it again. My wife always says that if it's back to San Francisco, she would say yes without batting an eyelid. And I think we are very grateful for the opportunity that we had. And the journey, I must say, was a wonderful journey that we would really cherish.
Mm.
Yeah. Um,
Well, that's quite a lot of countries you have actually lived in, quite a few.
yeah, I mean, I hadn't planned it that way, but one thing leads to another, and I think once you tried it once, you become more confident, and you sometimes get hit by the adventure bug. And we always say Singapore is a small country, and there's always a lot more out there that we can explore and experience. And I think with that spirit, the adventure spirit, it just took me from one place to another place.
Well, how about you, BK? You want to
So
describe
about
to us your own
sorry?
experience? I mean, you have been away for so
I
long
was
as well.
about to kind of describe my own experience as well. I have lived in Moscow, Russia. I have lived in Thailand, but that was very short. I have also lived in China, quite similar to Ramesh, for almost 4 years. And currently now I'm in Malaysia as well. So all three of us happen to have congregated here for the past year or so, right? For me, it was slightly different. For me, it was really about getting out of Singapore to experience different parts of the world. And I've always believed that to kind of know a place well, I have stopped being a tourist. That's in like, buying a ticket and flying to a place for 2 weeks to a month. I don't think that is a good way to know a place. Now I started to feel that if I really want to explore somewhere, I'm going to try and live there for at least half a year. I think that's the best way for me to experience the place. And also because what I do today gives me a lot of flexibility. I do not need to be tied to a certain place. Honestly, I can be anywhere in the world as long as I have an internet connection. That works for me. So I can have this flexibility to choose where I want to be. So I've chosen Malaysia for now, and I'm guessing I'm just putting it out, like Ramesh, we talked about this afternoon, putting it out to the universe. My next stop might likely be Japan. Okay, so that is something I'm looking forward to, maybe in a year or two from now, right? So, just to ask the two of you, okay, most of us will still call Singapore home, right? Because our family, our parents, our roots are there, right? But what has been the biggest takeaway for you living overseas? The things you've learned or the biggest insights that you have? Maybe let's start with David first.
Well, I mean, I think one of the most important thing about living overseas is about openness. That one must be always open to whatever comes to you as either new experiences, insights, opportunities, and then the other side, any hiccups, any tumultuous events, so you must always be open to it and welcome it as an opportunity to learn about yourself. I think that's one. um, the other thing about not only living overseas but working in companies overseas, like what I have been through, whether is it in Switzerland or in Malaysia, in New York. It is that to be able to appreciate different work cultures that in many dimensions has a country overlay and ethnicity among them. But then underlying that is also what is universal. So that I think is the the biggest joy of having worked in different countries, that you get really to be in close contact with what it means to be part of the live cultures of living and working. Yeah.
Ramesh?
Yeah. So I mean, for me, I guess the journey was really about professional development, and when opportunities come, I say opportunities don't come knocking twice. When you have the chance, grab it.
Mm.
And my first stop was in San Francisco, and I think to David's point about culture, corporate culture, I think I was really um, sort of integrated or orientated to what was U.S. corporate culture, and which is actually quite different in some aspects. And back, in those days, I think most of us don't have so much interactions with U.S. colleagues, perhaps, and these days it's quite common. But when I went there, I think firstly, I think I was really comfortable because as Singaporeans we grew up on a diet of U.S. sitcoms and movies and music and news. So it's really easy for us Singaporeans to integrate into the U.S. work culture at that point in time when I was there. For me, but quickly you learn that unlike the Asian values, sometimes the U.S. corporate culture is conflicting with Asian values. So, for example, if you are invited to a meeting,
Mm.
typically if you are there with your bosses, the subordinates would keep quiet and probably listen most of the time to the meetings here in Singapore and other places. I presume, we always have this. Sort of mindset that we should not speak up or show any sort of disagreement with our superiors, and we need to know our place. But in the U.S. corporate culture, if you go into a meeting, uh, regardless of what seniority you are, and you keep quiet throughout the meeting, the next thing is people will be asking, what did this person contribute, and maybe we don't need him or her to come to the meeting in future. Um, so you quickly learn that it's not, you cannot be a passenger. You have to be contributing and adding value to any interaction that you are involved in. And it was quite interesting at that point in time where you see a lot of Asians are actually in the US are very good with detailed work, and the Caucasians are very good with the big picture. And there was this book about breaking the glass ceiling. Uh, it was breaking the bamboo ceiling. I think it was written by a female author in Asian, and she sort of talked about some of these conflicts with Asian values that hold Asians back working in the US corporate culture. So, I had quickly understood that, there is a difference in style. And I slowly then started on a journey trying to integrate the best of both worlds, East and West, in my own practices so that I can be more effective. And that's one thing I learned. The other thing in the US is also about ownership of your career. And it's a concept that you have to actively plan and chart your own career path because no one else is going to look out for you. Whereas I think, for us, we typically brought up on a diet that, as long as you keep doing your work properly, you get promoted and you move on, right? But in the US is that you have to actively own your career, you have to set your goals, and you have to keep making sure that you are achieving those goals in order to progress. And the US is also, they embrace a lot of diversity. When I was there in 2005, they had a diversity officer, and this was helping the work culture embrace diversity. Many of these practices you see is leading in the US, and generally it takes a while before it becomes more mainstream in other parts of the world. And that's something that I got exposed to as well pretty early on. There's also the coaching culture and effective leadership, which I think is also something that I felt was very good to learn from the US, because I think their managers and bosses tend to have a personal touch, right? They tend to work with people and understand their team members, their strengths, their weaknesses, their motivations, and try to basically empower the team as opposed to micromanaging the team. And I thought, my view was that in general, the leadership style and the management techniques that I was seeing there was a lot more useful. And certainly, I always felt that the Asian management style sometimes tends to be too micromanaging as opposed to really empowering the teams. And that's something that I keep trying to do. But I think one of the most important things I learned or became aware of in the US was that we tend to own problems in when I used to work here in Singapore. We had a lot of issues, and we try to typically solve the issue as best as we can, but we go at it alone. And in the US, typically when there's a problem, I realize that you call a meeting, get all the stakeholders involved into the room, you lay out the situation, everyone sort of contributes their ideas. So you discuss, you agree an action plan, and then you go ahead and execute. So whatever problems you face, you don't really have to stress too much as long as you have this technique to quickly resolve, not just through your own effort to try and figure out what the solution is, but involve people, the relevant stakeholders. And it is a very quick way to relieve stress as well. And I find it very, very helpful. So I always tell my teams, discuss, agree, execute, do it that way. Nothing will go wrong. You can apply that to your professional life. You can apply that to your personal life. It works. Yeah, you always get a problem when you don't discuss, agree, and you do something, right? So that's what I learned in the US, which I thought was really great in terms of picking up the soft skills. Moving forward to Greater China, um, I think what I learned was maybe an analogy. In China, if you drive, right, everyone just looks forward. They don't care about the left and the right. They don't care about the back. You just look forward and you go forward. And if you do that, you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about accidents. The person behind you has to watch out, right? And if he hits you from the back, then it's his fault. And that's the way Chinese move forward in a very forceful way. Everyone is just looking forward; they don't look back. And on the roads, people are very cool. If someone is in front of you and sort of cuts into your lane, the person behind doesn't really horn or get angry. Everyone just maintains their cool, and it's like water flowing, right? If this droplet happens to be in front, it will flow first. So relax, let the car go, let the electric bike go, and just remain cool, which I thought was amazing, because no one gets angry, or all that is negative energy. And in terms of corporate, you can see every business is trying to build market share. And Chinese companies, one mandate is they want to be number one, and they want to be number one in terms of market share. And to do that, they have a lot of speed and a lot of discipline. And you can see during the COVID crisis how quickly China organized itself to build not one but two hospitals in a span of less than 10 to 12 days. And that's the amazing speed that they work in. And it was amazing that while I was there, there's this. I was lucky to be able to see this transformation in technology, data, AI, and innovation, particularly in the fintech space and the mobile payment space in China. And China is obviously making huge investments into AI and tech. Little did I imagine that working in China would expose me to cutting edge innovation. I come away with deep respect for China and what it can achieve. And I always tell my kids in their lifetime they're going to be working with and competing head to head with the Chinese. And I think many people underestimate, the advancements that China has made. And because we've lived in China, we understand how the Chinese think. We can actually see for ourselves how they live, and the drive and the energy. And with that sort of personal experience, you can see how you can probably predict how far they will go. And I think those were some of the amazing insights that I could have never gotten unless I've lived in China.
Yeah, for you not only live, but you work there as well, right?
Yeah. So for 7 years, I was in Shanghai. And my wife and kids have benefited too, right? My kids are basically third culture kids. They are generally very mature. And, the international school system has exposed them to embracing a global perspective. In their schools, typically, they have classmates, schoolmates from more than 50 different nationalities. And they have grown to be very vocal, expressive, and confident. And I think those are important skills, that will set them apart when they grow older. And I hope, the international exposure and the friendships that they've made would help them, achieve more in their lifetime. And then finally, I think I learned to appreciate what we have in Singapore. And certainly a lot less critical about the small imperfections that we see in Singapore. People always say Singaporeans like to complain about a lot of things. And, previously I probably was in that camp, but having lived overseas, I really say, these are small problems. Wait till you go to other countries and you realize how things work there. So I've come to really appreciate, what we have in Singapore. Yeah.
Which actually brings me as a nice segue to my next question, and I'll probably direct it for David, right? As a country, I think it has also become a brand. Singapore is kind of like a brand. So having lived overseas yourself, right, in several countries as well, David, has it been beneficial to have this Singapore brand with you? Or so what are the advantages of having a Singapore brand, and also what are the disadvantages of having a Singapore brand?
Well, I think my first transition from Singapore to Switzerland, the Singapore brand actually stood me very well, because I remember I was working with Klaus Schwab, the founder of World Economic Forum, and the first time we connected was him talking about how he regarded Lee Kuan Yew as a role model of leadership, right? And the wonders he called Singapore a miracle, So in that regard, the Singapore brand, in the eyes of many people, at least that I've encountered, at very senior leadership level have a very strong regard for, the efficiency, the effectiveness of our governance and the way we execute, right? So when they look at a Singaporean, they also have the picture or the expectation of someone who is able to deliver, and someone who is efficient, and someone who is
Compliant.
precise. Yeah.
Compliant.
Yeah. Coming to other parts of the world was a bit different. In particular, Malaysia, which being such a close neighbor to Singapore, obviously has certain stereotypes of the extreme Singaporean kiasuism, brashness, cutthroat and all that. And I remember my early days coming to Malaysia was actually trying to learn that culture, while they were trying to understand that myself as well as a Singaporean versus the stereotype Singaporean that they they have always understood. So that I would call a kind of cultural clash that requires a bit of harmonization, right? Because I encountered a culture initially that was pretty laid back, that anchors itself on harmony more than other priorities like getting things done, right? It's a technical issue. I hear an echo.
Sorry, David, I kind of lost you for a while. I hope it's still going on correctly, Ramesh.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
really hang on a minute. Today is a day of technical challenges. Hang on a minute.
MCO, CMCO here. So everyone's on the internet.
Yeah. They say in Singapore the circuit breaker, right? So that it's a breaker. Is it okay now?
Yeah. I'm back. I hope I'm back.
You're there. You're there. We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah. I'm so sorry about that. So
Yeah.
it is but I think that's
Talking about
whole.
Singapore brand.
Yeah.
So if you were to ask me now, right, having worked 15 years, I think the Singapore brand has actually stood me very, very well, and I'm actually very proud of it for what our country stands for in terms of the kind of fairness, the pragmatism, and at the same time having that whole strategic horizon when we look at development, right, and progress. But at the same time, the fact that we, as what Ramesh said earlier, at a very young age, were exposed to a whole diet of Western and also our Eastern cultural diets. That I think make us really uniquely positioned to be able to navigate a lot of different situations around the world, right? So today, if you ask me, I think a lot of Singaporeans may be even more prepared and equipped to go out there versus perhaps the two of us when we started it 15 years ago, and it was not something that is common. So that's how I feel about Singapore, and I'm actually very proud whenever I listen to the whole song, by Kit Chan, that are about on Singapore, that actually lift up my whole spirit for many weeks to come. Just listening to it on National Day. All right, so that whole connection is even much stronger now, even though I'm not exactly home, right? But that's what I really feel now about Singapore.
So any disadvantages? Did you talk about it just now? Sorry, when I lost you just now. Did you?
Yeah, I was thinking about being in Malaysia initially, and it's sort of a cultural clash when the Malaysians, have a stereotype of Singaporeans as being very fast-going, very brash, very kiasu, and so on. So yeah, it took a bit of effort to correct that stereotype. That actually, in certain aspects, we are also very similar in having a common culture actually, or ancestry, that goes way back. But maybe the way we have presented and carry ourselves, give the kind of impressions, right?
Yeah, I I guess I also need to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit. You know, I also have noticed that the Singapore brand, of course, we are all very thankful that our government has done a good job in creating this Singapore brand for us, and it has actually been uh, quite a good brand to have, because when we go anywhere, people come, oh, you are Singaporean. It's always said in a very positive tone, right? I'm sure all of you have noticed and have felt it. But I have also lately have started to realize, as we move across different countries, and also because of the more recent years, right? I do need to say that my observation is we are also starting to lose some of this star quality that used to be associated with the Singapore brand. Not because we have dropped in our status as a Singapore brand, but I think that, like what Ramesh said just now, some of the other countries have grown by leaps and bounds. You know, they have progressed and they have grown by leaps and bounds, and perhaps that also gives me a sense of urgency, knowing that I also need to improve myself. I shouldn't rely entirely on the fact that I have this Singapore brand, because whether in China or anywhere else, just telling people that you're from Singapore doesn't quite cut it anymore. You know, I'm just being honest here. I think that is something that we all need to be aware of, right? That's how I feel. Have you all felt the same way? I mean, do you all feel the same way sometimes?
Ramesh?
Not really. Actually, when I was in the US, you have two groups of people: people who have heard about Singapore and people who think Singapore is somewhere
Fine,
in
China.
China. Yeah, and I think my wife, who's an English major, when she speaks with the locals and the Caucasians, they say, "Oh, you speak very good English. Where are you from?" You know, and so that's the common question we get asked, lah. For me, I don't look so Chinese, so probably they assume I'm Hispanic or Mexican. I don't know. Um, but I think also I realize Singapore is really small in terms of economic clout. So as you go to market, you see the Germans chambers and the American chambers and the Japanese. All these countries have very big economic clout, and you realize that Singapore is actually really a small dot lah. But we do have a good brand, a positive image in terms of the workforce, and we're known to be compliant, we're known to be capable, bilingual. In terms of disadvantage, I don't think so lah, unless during times when there are political tensions, maybe when politics friction
Come to
happens
play.
during politics, you may want to hide and make sure that you don't say you're from Singapore if there's a political issue somewhere between your local state and Singapore. But other than that, I think we never I've never had any significant disadvantage about associating myself with Singapore. And I think in Shanghai there's a very strong Singaporean community, as there is a Malaysian community, and they try to bring everyone together. And just now, I think when David talked about Kit Chan, I remember the Singapore days that we have in Shanghai, where it'll be a huge party to celebrate National Day, and we get to eat all the local delicacies, the carrot cake and the barbecue chicken wings and all that. Yeah.
You know, talking about food, right? I just want to mention something that might be funny. When I was in China, I kind of looked all over for zui gui. I couldn't find zui gui. I love zui gui in Singapore, but I can't find it in China. That was one of the foods I miss. So what were some of the foods you guys miss when y'all were like staying overseas?
For me, in the States, we still could get good, decent Chinese dim sum. But in terms of and Chinese food, obviously there's Chinatown there and all that. In terms of Singapore food in US, I think it was very hard to find. I'm sure it's more popular these days. In Hong Kong, it was also hard to find Singapore food. But thankfully, in Shanghai, Singapore Malaysia food is very popular. There are a number of restaurants, and you can easily get all the local delicacies, like including carrot cake and all that. And
Yeah.
today you can actually get chwee kueh also. There are a couple of uh, sort of home operators or caterers that actually do delivery, and that's the amazing thing in China is that you have all these entrepreneurs, Singaporean Malaysians, that will sort of circulate their menu for the week through WeChat, which is a super app. And you can then place your orders, and deliveries will be made based on your orders. And you can order chwee kueh, you can order laksa, and quite a number of dishes lah. And you can always request them, for all these dishes that you cannot get, and they're more than happy if there's demand to make these. But yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
Singapore is. I think the thing you miss most about being away is number one, your extended family, and number two is all the good food.
Mm.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
David, you have been in Malaysia, which is quite close by, lah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't really miss Singapore food, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, this is something that I wouldn't miss because it's very much similar, and you can find chwee kueh in many places in Malaysia.
Oh,
Yeah.
I couldn't find it in China for myself.
I
But
don't
one
find
thing I
it in
realized,
Switzerland though.
uh, but I think that's where like for me, I started to cook some of the dishes that I love. And help me to bring
Yeah.
out another passion, which is cooking. And I enjoy cooking the food that I love, and thankful that being away from home allowed me to dabble in trying to recreate those dishes. And
Yeah. So
obviously, we have Prima
another
Base to thank as well.
another episode, we're gonna get Ramesh to come on and talk to us
Do
about
culinary.
cooking for one person when you are living overseas because it's a challenge. And he has been tempting us with all kinds of amazing pictures of his home cooked dishes. His sioba, for example, it's amazing, right? So he needs to come on and teach us how to do that. Okay, I know we are going on a bit longer than usual, but since I have two guests, this triple the time, so let's take advantage. Maybe last topic for tonight. So we had the Singapore brand, right? Now we have another brand, which is the Reflection brand, the Raffles brand, right? All of us come from the same school. Now, those of you who are listening, it's not to disparage any, it's not that at all. Please don't get us wrong. We're not trying to say whatever is good about us or not good about other than there's nothing in that aspect at all. In fact, we actually, among us privately, we have talked about this before, right? Not just three of us, but amongst our other friends. We actually do think that a lot of other schools have done a better job at maintaining their sense of camaraderie after school, after leaving school. We sometimes think that we as Reflegians perhaps have not done as well, right? And some of us are talking about how we can perhaps do more for this thing, right? And in fact, just now when David talked about Kit Chan, she's also a fellow Reflegian, she's 1 year my senior, and I think 1 year or 2 years your junior. 1 year or junior, right? I think so. Kit Chan, yeah. So has this, so we should talk more about this, and we can take it offline, about creating this. Maybe we started with overseas Reflegians. That might be a simpler way to gather people. We can always have more people and invite more people here. But has this Reflegion brand in any way helped us or helped you when you're overseas? Both of you?
So when I was actually in Shanghai, we do have a Reflection WeChat group. So there's an ORA group, and I think the last count probably about close to 60 members. And not all are still in China. Some may have already returned, like myself, back to Asia or Singapore, ASEAN. And I think the WeChat sort of communication application obviously helps to bring people together and create those networks. And then you have a number of people who are very active to help bring people together through meals and social gatherings. So I think there is an ability, and some of these are happening. Certainly in the earlier days in San Francisco, it was harder to locate fellow refugees. Without the sort of a social group where you can start getting to know more Singaporeans. I think that there wasn't that platform, and to some extent, I think getting in touch with the local consulates might be able to help us put ourselves in touch with fellow Singaporeans, and through that process, search for alumni who are either refugees, or some of us may also have other schools during our lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And that could be a way lah. But certainly, I think having spent a number of our years in a school with a common identity and common talking points helps us to bond a lot quicker with fellow refugees, and certainly we need to tap into that network. And I think BK we spoke about. I think we had this perception that some of the other alumni were much more active and stronger in this regard. And therefore, there's always opportunity for each of us who are overseas to do more to help, drive the community bonds of fellow refugees.
Yeah, most definitely.
Well,
David, yourself?
Well, I mean, I remember when I was in Switzerland, there are not many Singaporeans to start with.
To start with.
So I do know all the embassy guys, so it's I mean, in Geneva, you can count them, right? But what Ramesh said was right. There's this thing about being a refugee that very quickly allows you to connect with another. So I actually found a refugee, a lady, and when we were introduced to each other, it wasn't because we were refugees, but through mutual friends. But once we got to talk about being a refugee, that quickly solidify our friendship. So that's that camaraderie, if you will, sticks on. Despite now how many years since we have left school? 30 years.
Too many.
Ramesh, but
Indeed.
but it is what actually bonds us and formulates that connection so quickly. Like our class, me and Ramesh were in the same class together in JC.
Yeah, 31 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty fast for us to get to just get into topics very easily and very deep at a very quick level because of that common past history that we have. And also there are things that are very uniquely Refusian that I find very interesting, right? About the values that we stand for, about the kind of pride that we have, about excellence, right? So these are topics that we don't need a lot of explanation. And then our favorite teachers, or so to speak, right? And that is what shaped us to be what we are today. I think that's a very, very powerful motivator to bring people together. And the thing that you said earlier actually got me to think we haven't really maximized a platform like this, to bring different connections together. Maybe not just within a country, but across different countries. Now there's this opportunity. So maybe the next time you can invite Kit Chan in here. You have all the whole global alumni all joining in.
Yeah, we can dream, we can aspire, and I think it's going to be great. We should actually. I have been wanting to do something like this for a while. I think we have obviously seriously have under tapped our alumni connections. When I was in China, I'm sure Ramesh felt the same. Kit Chan did all of us proud. She was super popular when she went on to that program. It was a singing competition program, for all the top level singers. a lot of Chinese friends that I was very close with, they all said, wow, she is amazing. And she was like, she did all of us pretty proud. That was it was a happy thing to hear, Of course, I told them, she's actually my senior. I remember listening to her sing during our concerts for Teachers' Day and all those things in school back then. And they all went, like, wow, really? So kind of, had a bit of limelight shared with her in that sense, which is obviously nice, right? So anyway, I really want to thank the two of you for taking time to do this and come on as guests for my live stream. I am very privileged and I'm very honored because I have a lot of friends and seniors who obviously are very, very accomplished in their fields, in their respective fields, and they have a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge to share. And sometimes I really would like to be able to get them on to kind of share things, because this live stream was started with the intention to challenge myself, but I also hope to be able to bring value to people. So that was always the intention. And of course, the whole spirit of this is to try new things and so on. So I think all three of us have kind of embodied the spirit, because we have ventured out of Singapore, out of a so-called comfortable place. Singapore is our home, it's very comfortable. We have ventured to places where it may not be as comfortable, cultures may be a bit different, but yet I think because of perhaps our background as Reflegians, playing sports and so on, and we have actually be a bit more accustomed to trying new things. Maybe that's one of the good things, right? So thank you for coming on board today. It may not be your last time. Hopefully you can come on again and share other things. And of course, we'll try and get more people. So this live stream platform that you guys are on now, just to let you all know, behind the scenes, we did a trial run earlier in the day. We tried a lot of things just to make sure that we can do this properly for you. So there's also some effort involved in this. And we can take up to 10 people. So those of you who are listening, if you're a fellow Reflegian, happen to be staying overseas, actually even if you're not staying overseas, we welcome you to join us. And even if you're from other schools, if you're overseas and Singaporean, let's come on together and share as well, right? So thank you both, and we'll see you tomorrow on day 21.